Hello, romantic lovers. Welcome to Tales from the Heart. I am Jenna Harte, and each week I post new episodes from my stories of crime and passion. Right now, we're listening to Till Death Do Us Part, Book 4 of the Valentine Mysteries. This week is Episode 1, Chapter 1. Now, if you'd like to read along or get ahead in the story, you can get Till Death Do Us Part from your favorite ebook retailer or save by buying direct from me. Now, Till Death Do Us Part is the fourth book in the series. If you missed Book 1, Deadly Valentine, you can listen by checking earlier episode postings, or if you'd like to read it, you can get Deadly Valentine for free at my website, jennaharte.com. Books 2 and 3, Old Flames Never Die, and With This Ring I Thee Kill, are available in earlier episode postings or available to read at your favorite ebook retailer or for less through my shop. Tales from the Heart is posted to YouTube and podcasts each week. These episodes are edited to censor intimate content. Now, if you'd like to have a version that includes the spicy bits, plus early access, behind-the-scenes information about stories, bonus content, and more, please join my exclusive Sweetheart group at jennaharte.com. It is free to join. Now, never miss the mystery or romance by hitting the subscribe button, and remember that all the details and links you might need are just a click away in the description. Now snuggle up, get comfy, and enjoy the show.
Chapter 1. Tess scanned the bottom of the spreadsheet and grinned. Who'd have thought underwear could be so profitable? She did, of course. After all, she'd spent a fortune on couture lingerie at Césarier's boutique before buying it a few months ago. She hit the print button to save a hard copy of last month's profits. Reaching toward her printer to grab the paper, the plump red ruby on her left hand glinted, reminding her she was even more blessed than just having a profitable shop. Life was good. Really good.
Hey, Tess. There is a fine-looking man out here wanting to know if you'll model something for him.
Tess turned her attention to Regina, who was once her legal assistant and now worked as her store assistant.
He's got taste, too. He's looking at that Corinne Gilson you've been eyeing.
That deserves my attention.
Tess rose from her seat. She left her office, entering the main section of the small boutique. Normally, she'd be distracted by the racks of expensive silk, her equivalent of a kid in the candy store. But nothing could compete with the brilliant blue-green eyes and single dimple that smiled back at her.
Can I help you?
She approached him. He was dressed casually in jeans and a dress shirt, but his presence said he had money, and just about anything else he wanted. She knew from experience. He held up a blush-colored chemise with delicate lace trim.
I'm thinking of buying this for my wife. I'm wondering how it will look on her. Do you model?
Showings are done after hours, in private.
He looked intrigued.
Can I make an appointment? Tonight? My place?
I think I can pencil that in.
He leaned toward her, his arm wrapping around her waist.
Shall we seal the deal?
If you think it's necessary.
He grinned before giving her a firm, thorough kiss that held the promise of something more later. Even after all these months, it still took a moment for the fog to clear when he kissed her.
So are you here simply for lingerie?
I have a lunch date with an old friend, and I thought you might like to come along.
Date, huh? Is this date a man or a woman?
He hesitated a little longer than usual, the only sign of discomfort.
A woman.
I'm having a profound sense of déjà vu,
she said. Jack's hand splayed on her lower back and pulled her closer.
I love it when you speak French.
With effort, Tess ignored all the warm sensations that tingled through her body when he held her close.
The last time you met an old friend, we nearly broke up and you were almost killed.
This is different.
Uh-huh.
She wasn't convinced. He smiled, the one he used to get his way.
I promise.
She studied him and his beguiling smile as if she would be able to say no. They both knew she couldn't.
Let me check with Regina.
Go ahead, boss. I've got it covered.
Regina said from behind the counter. Tess sighed.
Okay then, let me get my purse and sweater. And you,
she said, handing Regina the chemise.
Can wrap this up for me. So who's the old friend we're going to meet?
Tess hoped he really meant old, as in elderly, which seemed less threatening.
It's a surprise.
Usually Tess liked surprises when they involved chocolate and jewelry, or of course lingerie. She didn't like old friend surprises as much. Jack's last old friend turned out to be a former girlfriend, which was bad enough. She also turned out to be a murderer.
A hint, then?
He lifted their linked hands and kissed the back of her hand.
It involves the law.
Well, that didn't sound like a surprise. After years working as a lawyer, Tess knew the law could be boring and tedious.
A better hint.
Here we are.
He opened the door to the Fox and Hound pub several storefronts down from her shop. It looked and operated like an English pub, so it was dark and mostly full of men. His hand on her back guided her toward the back, where it was darker and more secluded.
Is she on the run?
Tess asked, taking a seat in the leather booth.
Not exactly.
He sat next to her.
Don't worry, you're going to love this.
He was grinning again, which by osmosis made her grin.
You better be right or our appointment tonight is off.
Ouch. So how about one last kiss, just in case?
Sure, why not?
He leaned in. This time his kiss was a preview of things to come.
So this is what's been keeping you too busy to call?
Tess broke from the kiss to look up at the woman standing by their table. She wore classic but baggy clothes and had a large hat and sunglasses that she took off as she sat in the booth opposite them. That's when Tess realized who the woman was. She looked at Jack, who smiled like a Cheshire cat. Tess swallowed and willed herself to not act like a complete idiot. But it wasn't every day you met a huge movie star.
Hi, I'm
Ava Dumont. You're Ava Dumont.
Tess knew Jack had once dated Ava, but she hadn't realized they'd remained friends. She would have to think about what that meant as soon as she got over the shock and thrill of meeting Ava Dumont. Ava cast disapproving eyes at Jack.
From the look on her face, she doesn't know about me.
Oh, I know,
Tess said. Ava narrowed her eyes at Jack.
What did you tell her?
Nothing. She saw the magazines.
Oh, Jack, don't tell me that's all she knows about me.
Ava chastised. He shrugged.
She didn't ask.
How do you put up with him?
It can be hard,
Tess said, still in shock, but now wondering what Jack hadn't told her. She turned to him, hoping the surprise in her face was replaced by a stern expression. He gave her a sheepish smile.
Ava and I grew up together.
Since about first grade.
First grade? Was this a secret?
Tess asked. He shook his head.
I just always got the impression you didn't want to talk about it.
You make it sound like there's something to talk about.
Ava said.
And there's not. Not even when the paparazzi was snapping pictures of us a couple of years ago.
Nothing?
Tess's eyes narrowed with accusation.
You let me think.
We just never talked about it.
You're bad.
Tess hoped her expression and tone chastised him. She wanted to be mad, but for some reason, knowing she wasn't ever compared to Ava Dumont in a romantic way was a relief.
And you're in trouble.
Does that mean we're off for tonight?
You two are adorable. And disgusting. But Tess, I'm so glad to finally meet you. I can't tell you how many pining sessions I had to endure from this guy about you.
I didn't pine alone,
Jack said.
No, you didn't.
Tess wondered who Ava pined about. Was it Reese Wilder, her co-star in their hit TV show Order in the Court? Tess, along with other fans, wondered if the chemistry off-screen was as hot as on-screen. Although Tess knew intellectually that characters and their actors were different, she'd always had a secret fantasy that Ava and Reese had true love. She was disappointed when out of the blue he'd married D-list actress Amia Gross.
So what brings you to Jefferson Tavern?
Tess asked.
Work. A movie.
It must be really interesting to make movies,
Tess said.
It can be, but it's tedious at times too. I'm so glad you and Jack are in town. I'm going to need all the moral support I can get.
Why?
Tess and Jack asked together. Tess asked more out of curiosity, but she could hear concern in Jack's voice.
You'll never guess who my co-star is.
Not Reese?
Jack asked. He made it sound bad, but Tess was thrilled. Ava and Reese together again. The movie was guaranteed to be a hit. Even after years of being off the air except in syndication and DVDs, fans still couldn't get enough Order in the Court and speculating on their relationship.
You and Reese don't get along?
Tess hoped she sounded like a concerned friend more than a curious fan.
It's a long story, one you have my permission to tell,
she said to Jack. A waiter arrived to take their orders.
I can't stay for lunch, but we can get drinks,
Ava said. Jack gave their drink orders and then asked,
Is there a story to tell now?
Absolutely not. But I'm still glad his wife won't be here.
The disdain in Ava's voice echoed what Tess thought about Amya, although Tess didn't have any personal experience on which to base her dislike.
I thought they were getting a divorce,
Tess said.
They are. It's killing Reese's reputation since it hasn't been that long since their son died. Reese is a good guy, so it must have been really bad for him to potentially ruin his career by looking like a louse and leaving her.
You really think leaving her will hurt his career?
I think he can rebound. I'm sure that's why he's doing the movie. He knows there's still a fan base for order in the court. We know the rumors.
Tess was dying to ask about the truth to the rumors, but sipped the glass of wine the waiter brought.
But enough about me. Tell me, how'd he propose?
He thought he was dying,
Tess said.
What?
It was a little better than that.
Jack defended himself.
He was shot by his ex-lover, and while I was trying to save his life, he proposed.
Ava laughed.
I'm surprised, Valentine. I'd thought you were more romantic than that.
It was romantic. Besides, I made up for it.
He gestured toward Tess's ring.
Wow, beautiful. A ruby like a red Valentine. That is better.
Tess decided not to mention that the ruby was the second ring, because the first ring was now sitting in Versailles.
Where'd you go on the honeymoon?
Paris.
Tess answered.
By boat?
Ava said with a snort.
Plain.
Jack said tightly.
Really? You cured him of his flying phobia, Tess?
He had medicinal help.
Well, it must be love if he endured flying.
It must be.
Tess agreed, as she squeezed Jack's hand under the table.
I'm sorry I couldn't make the wedding. You didn't give much advance notice. I half expected to show up here today to see a baby bump.
Tess glanced at Jack, not realizing he'd invited Ava to the wedding. Not that she would have cared one way or the other.
No baby. Not yet, anyway.
Jack said.
We just wanted to be married.
Our way,
Tess added.
I'm glad to see you so happy.
Tess thought she saw a little envy in Ava.
I am happy.
Jack smiled at Tess.
Listen, I have to run, but there's a party tonight at the hotel where we're all staying. It's a get-to-know-each-other thing. I'd love it if you could come.
We like to, but we have plans.
Of course we'll come.
Tess interrupted Jack. His expression was a mixture of confusion and disappointment.
Great. I need all the support I can get.
Ava stood, donned her hat and glasses, and sauntered away.
So am I still in trouble?
Jack asked.
I can show you lingerie anytime.
Not right now, you can't. Not during the party.
Most anytime, but Ava needs our support.
Jack leaned forward, his blue-green eyes piercing into hers.
This isn't about seeing Reese Wilder, is it?
He is handsome and charming.
So am I, and I just bought you lingerie.
Do you think he likes Corinne Gilson?
I don't think you're his type.
Tess frowned.
Why not? What's wrong with me?
For one thing, you're taken. For another, I think someone else has dibs on him.
Is that the long story you have permission to tell?
Jack nodded.
Let's order some lunch and I'll fill you in.
I can't believe Reese Wilder is such a jerk.
Tess said as she walked hand in hand with Jack back to her boutique.
He always seemed like a nice guy.
He's an actor. People aren't really like the roles they play.
I know, but even in their interviews, there was something extra between them. At least that's how it seemed.
Ava thought there was. He suggested there was. They were planning a trip after they finished filming the show that last year.
And then he just turned on her? Did he really not even say goodbye on the last day of filming when the show went off the air?
Tess asked.
That's how Ava tells it.
And then 2 months later, he was married to Amya Gross and expecting a baby. Who does that?
Reese Wilder, apparently.
I bet Amya had something to do with it.
Tess said with disgust.
Ava thought the same, but whatever she did, Reese went along.
What a disappointment.
I never realized how invested you were in celebrity lives.
I'm not really. But that show helped me believe in true love, in the possibility of a happy marriage.
You didn't believe in true love when I was aggressively pursuing you.
I believed for a while, then I didn't believe. Then you came into my life, and now I believe again.
He smiled, lifted her hand to his lips, and kissed it.
Good to hear.
She stopped with him outside her shop.
Why do you think she's doing this movie? I can see why he'd want to. His reputation has suffered after leaving Amya so soon after their son died. Everyone loved him and Ava together, so working with her could help his career. But she doesn't need him.
Jack shrugged.
Knowing Ava, she's doing it to prove to herself that what he did doesn't matter.
But she's still worried. That's why she wants us with her tonight.
He nodded.
It's why I went to California to see her when the tabloids snapped all those pictures of us.
Reese really did hurt her then?
He nodded.
I think he broke her a little bit. She wouldn't admit it, but she's never been the same.
You could break me,
Tess said, his brow furrowed.
And you could break me.
It's a good thing we won't ever do that.
Good thing indeed.
He leaned over and kissed her. Jack left her at the boutique, saying he was going home to do some work. She knew his work these days involved playing video games his company was now making. She couldn't fault him for that. Selling lingerie was a bit like playing for Tess.
Hey, boss.
Regina said when Tess walked into the shop.
Everything all right around here?
It's been quiet.
I don't like the sound of that.
Regina grinned.
Well, the store has been quiet, but the internet has been busy. Here.
She handed Tess a piece of paper.
Those are all the internet sales this week.
Tess's eyes widened in surprise.
Just this week?
Yes. Not bad, eh?
Not bad at all, Tess thought. It had been Regina's idea to include an online store, and it was turning out to be a good one.
I don't think I pay you enough.
You say that all the time.
But Tess realized it was probably true, and decided she'd run the numbers to look into paying Regina a percentage of the internet sales along with her salary. She'd done the work. She deserved some of the reward. Tess sent Regina off on her lunch break and then pulled a box of Damaris lingerie to put on display. The bell hanging over the door rang, announcing the entrance of a slim, well-dressed woman. She wore large sunglasses and hat, similar to Ava's, but she also wore an expensive Dolce & Gabbana suit. Tess grinned. A woman like that had to know lingerie and could afford it.
Can I help you?
The woman took off her glasses. Tess's smile dropped. She knew that shiny complexion and pinched face. Amya Gross was in her store. Tess didn't want to be petty. After all, she never met Amya before. Maybe all the Reese fans that had met her were mistaken about her brusque, rude behavior. Perhaps she was a nice person behind a face that was giving new meaning to looking down one's nose.
I left LA in a hurry and didn't pack anything suitable. I was told you might have some nice delicates.
Her tone sounded doubtful.
Is there a brand you prefer?
The woman took off her hat, shook out short reddish hair that Tess guessed came from a bottle. A very expensive bottle.
In LA, I like to shop La Perla on Rodeo Drive.
Tess got the feeling that Amya wanted to be recognized, and being a little bit petty, Tess decided not to.
We have La Perla.
Oh, really? What about Obaid or Wheat?
Yes, and Karine Gilson and Damaris.
Tess felt sure Amya's suggested she thought Tess's lingerie might be knockoff.
Is there something specific you're looking for? A nightgown, maybe?
She figured someone like Amya wouldn't leave home without a bra and underwear, but maybe she'd forget sleepwear.
I'm here to surprise my husband, so I'm looking for something enticing.
Tess stared at Amya for a moment. Amya's husband was divorcing her. Was she here to stop him? Was she here to mess up things for him and Ava? Amya stepped toward the Karine Gilson display to look at a silky blush chemise. It was the same chemise Jack just bought her. Not wanting to think about Amya owning the same lingerie as she did, Tess redirected her toward the La Perla section.
Here's a pretty ensemble from La Perla.
Amya took her time to study the lacy black lingerie.
Is this last year's?
Tess bit her tongue.
They just hit the stores in Paris.
Amya's eyes said she didn't believe her. Good. Get of my store then, Tess thought.
So surprising that a little shop in a nowhere town like this would have the clientele for such luxuries.
Clearly, you've never been to Jefferson Tavern. There is a great deal of money in the area.
Amya turned back to the La Perla garment. Tess rolled her eyes.
I guess this will do.
Excellent. Will you be paying with cash?
No, I'll charge it.
Amya handed over her card. Tess saw the name Amya Gross, but decided to pretend she still didn't know who she was. She processed the payment and wrapped the lingerie up in tissue paper and a pretty black and pink bag, and then got Ms. Gross out of her store as fast as she could.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Tales from the Heart. I hope you enjoyed it and that you will be back to find out what happens next. Now remember, members of my Sweetheart group can listen to full uncensored episodes through my website. Just visit jennaharte.com and click to become a Sweetheart for access to uncensored audio episodes, bonus content, and more. Again, it is free to join. If you'd like to read along or get ahead in the story, you can read Til Death Do Us Part from your favorite ebook retailer or save by buying direct from me. All the details and links you might need are just a click away in the description. Now don't miss the next episode. Hit the subscribe button so you'll know when it's posted. Thank you again for listening, and until next time, this is Jenna Harte wishing you peace, love, and happily ever after.